Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we're going to look at a story that's coming out of Zambia, and it's very interesting, showing more use case for cryptocurrency, but a wider adoption cycle is taking place here in a way that a lot of people maybe wouldn't have considered before. But why is this story a big deal? Well, there's a company called Gridless that is going out into countries like Zambia and finding renewable energy sources that they can attach Bitcoin mining systems to. It's interesting because they have narrowed down on this area of the energy infrastructure that has a lot of wastage. Now, why is there a lot of wastage in renewable energy? Well, because we still don't have a really good way of storing the energy. So if you imagine you have a solar panel set up. During the day, it is generating lots and lots of energy, and that is getting fed into, say, someone's house. They're using it. Excess energy might get fed back into a grid. But there comes a point where there's only a certain amount of energy that can be used within the house and fed back into the grid. The rest of that energy just goes to waste. Now, one way of storing this energy is by using batteries, but even then, battery technology is not that great just yet to store a substantial amount of energy. There are lots of other ways people are talking about storing this energy, but it's still not quite there yet. One idea is, if you attach a Bitcoin miner onto the renewable energy source, and at the point where it has given off all the energy it can be used, the customer who's going to buy the energy has already bought and used as much as they can, the rest of the energy can be funneled into powering a Bitcoin miner, which is then starting to generate an income. So it's an interesting way of storing the energy in the Bitcoin network. And for this particular example of an energy generating system, this is a hydroelectric dam. How this works is the natural supply of water that's built up in the mountains, say, is running down through the valley, and it passes through a certain point. There's a lot of volume of water passing through this area. You come along and you build a dam and then create a small exit hole where you can put turbines in there. As the water is forced through those turbines, they spin, generate electricity. The company that built the dam obviously spent a lot of money building the infrastructure. So the idea is that they will generate the electricity and sell it back to the local area at a particular price. But actually, if there's not that much demand for electricity in the local area, the company doesn't generate that much money. So in this particular example, the company that built the hydroelectric dam realized that they weren't actually making that much money. They were just making ends meet. So how do you make this more cost effective? This company, Gridless, came in and said to them, hey, in the times that you're not generating much electricity or you're not having much demand, we can attach Bitcoin miners to your system, to your infrastructure, and you can feed that electricity into the miners, that way generating an income. As those miners are going, they're literally strengthening the Bitcoin network. So it's a real positive for the whole network. Now, yes, the truth is that the Bitcoin network does use a lot of energy. Some people say it generates or uses as much energy as a small country. A comparison has been made using Argentina in the past. It's true. However, up to 50% at the moment of the Bitcoin network is produced by renewable energy. So actually, when you look at the statistics to say, hey, it's a terrible use of energy, but if 50% of that is being generated by renewables, it's not having a bad impact on the environment. The other side of this is, if you're a company that's got to front the investment to build energy infrastructure in, say, for example, remote parts of Africa, there has to be an incentive for you to do that. You have to be able to make money from the investment you put in. You want to make the money back, and you also want to make a profit. If there's no way of you making a profit, you're just not going to do that. So the locals in the area will never have a supply of electricity. But if you look at the idea of building mining networks on the other side of the energy infrastructure, you can then add that to profitability for that company, which then makes it more realistic. So as the Bitcoin price rises, the miners are making more money. Yes, the price can go down, but as we all know, over a long period of time, the Bitcoin price is going up. Also, you've got to consider that Bitcoin is currently valued in dollars, which is the world's strongest currency. But in countries like Zambia, their currency is a lot weaker against the dollar. So if Bitcoin is valued in dollars, the value of Bitcoin that's being produced on these miners is worth a lot of money in these countries. You can buy a lot with the value generated from Bitcoin miners. So yes, whilst I can understand the argument against Bitcoin being a heavy user of energy, you can actually use it to strengthen energy infrastructure in countries that don't have electricity or don't have a very strong grid, because it's not an incentive for countries to upgrade their grid. But using this system, you really could. Now, the other side of this is, the reason it's really good for Bitcoin networks is because the more miners and the more people activated in the network, the more decentralized it is, the higher the hash rate goes. So it makes the system far more decentralized, and that's what we want, a decentralized store of value that no government can switch off or control. But if we can watch the Bitcoin network evolve using renewable energy sources, the argument against Bitcoin's energy usage goes away, and then you can start to see, okay, the positives are now starting to outweigh the negatives. So if we conclude this story with a comparison, now a lot of people will say Bitcoin is like digital gold. But if you consider the amount of energy and environmental impact that the gold industry has just to mine this particular store of value, you start to look at it and go, wow, okay, Bitcoin does have a better system. You can have a store of value that can be sent anywhere in the world, can be used by anyone in the world, that could be powered by majority renewable energy, having a less of an impact on the environment. So this is another idea of where adoption can grow, because you can also strengthen energy infrastructure for countries around the world and people that would never have access to this kind of energy. So this is a massive adoption story, and it's very positive.